Hey folks, your OS Reviews. You're watching our video First Look and a throwback review of the Nintendo DS sight training game. So obviously by 2016 and 2017 standards, this is antiquated just because it was designed for the original DS as opposed to something like the 3DS, but it still will be compatible, it uses that same cartridge. It's the premise of this game which is fascinating to me, something that allows you to train your eyes in terms of reaction speeds and also tells you a bit more of info about how to relax your eyes and also, to train it so that you can memorize things on the go. With that being said, I was also slightly dubious when I first picked this up because, the idea of a video game or something designed for a pocket console where you have to kind of squint and focus on this little screen just really seems counterintuitive, and it seems to resist the idea of something that will benefit your eyes. So that's something that I want to explore and take a closer look at this video, whether or not this is something more of a gimmick or if it actually works. This is what the packaging looks like. What's interesting is that the cartridge here is slightly thicker than your normal Nintendo DS game box. On the sides here, there's a bit of information, including the various 5 aspects that it claims to actually improve for your eyes. So it actually practices your dynamic visual acuity, your momentary vision, eye movement, peripheral vision, and hand-eye coordination. So we'll see if this is actually true or not. I still think that if you're tapping on a small screen, it's not really the same as an actual physical exercise where you can probably really hone your eyes and allow your eyes to relax a bit more. On the inside, there's access to a pretty thick documentation guide that tells you how to set things up and teaches you a bit more information about this various aspects, and we'll take a closer look at the app next. So launching into this, something interesting if you have a Nintendo 3DS or a 2DS is that not all the controls will be 100% correspondent to the on-screen game anymore. You can still touch to interact, but if you press the A, B, C, D keys or the arrow keys, it's not going to exactly work. So right away we have access to a few settings that we can select from. We can go through daily training, which goes through a very quick version of some of these activities, shortens it down to about 2 minutes or so you can train your eyes every single day and then record it on this calendar. It really is quite in sync with the entire Wii as well as other fitness-oriented games in that ecosystem that Nintendo has been rolling out for the past few years, so nothing too special there. But there's also a quick play mode which allows you to just select a specific game. As you get better at certain games, it actually releases harder levels as well as additional games under similar categories. There's also a download mode. So if we tap on the daily training, you can create up to 4 different profiles, and it tells you a relative eye age based on how fast you are or how good you are at these games. As far as its accuracy, I'm not really too sure, but all I can say that it seems to be decent, but it doesn't really test you for, let's say, how far you can see, if you have prescription glasses or not. It tests you for your kind of reaction speed as well as more of these generic game-based elements than really what I would associate with eye health. But regardless, it is still something that is relatively fun, but it's a pretty simple game, I think. We can take a closer look at, this recommended training here. There's a calendar view that tells you the date, as well as your recommended training after you do a quick launch through an evaluation through a series of games, and then the computer calculates your eye health and your eye age, and then gives you a recommended list of things to practice and work on. So if we want to do, let's say, recommended training, let's go through a quick demonstration here. Learn the basics. So this profile I created just moments ago, so it doesn't have any additional information yet, which is why we're starting from new. So some of these games are based, well, they're at least trying to simulate more advanced sports. So for instance, volleyball. So what this does is you have to tap on this ball whenever it reaches this certain box in the screen. So it really tests you for your reaction speed. So we'll take a close look at this. Spiking the volleyball. Touch the ball when it hits the frame, blocked balls count as misses, and begin. So again, obviously it's going to be best if you use a stylus for this. Again, when the ball comes out, you just want to tap it as soon as possible. If you hit somewhere else, it counts as a miss, even though sometimes it's really just the fault of your stylus. And afterwards, it gives you a score. So it turns out I'm an amateur at this, and it gives you a record as well, which you can kind of save here for an all-time record, today's state, and then you can record this as a baseline to try and beat that score later on. So this is one of the things. Afterwards, it does tell you a bit more information about how that specific game is relevant to a certain aspect of your eye health, and then it tries to save that data and takes a few seconds. So that's essentially the premise of this entire game, I suppose. Of course, there are a lot of these tiny mini games that helps you with the various elements, or at least it claims to help you. And so on and so forth. So they're all oriented on this kind of reaction speed as well as a bit of rapid memory. So if I want to exit out of this, and let's see if it's possible to do one of those more complete custom training, or perhaps a complete eye age exam. If it's not, we're just going to check out a few other of these short mini games to show you guys here. So there we have it. There is an eye age check option on here. It's only going to allow you to do that once per day to record it into the system, but afterwards you can still technically use this again and again, but it's only for your own practice. It's not going to change that eye age anymore. So you can practice it, but it saves that first data into the system. So the first game on here is going to be, remember where the ball went after it, went into this box. So follow that and then tap on the correct one. And for each of these shorter kind of games, it's going to last for 5 rounds. And afterwards, it's going to tell you based on your performance how many of these you got right. The next test is going to be Momentary Vision. So this is number flash. It's going to flash a number, and then afterwards it tells you to remember it and then repeat it. So it's going to flash for a few seconds when it counts down on the top. So 11, and then it get more complex with larger digits and longer digits. Followed by the third test. So some of these are going to be in random order. They're not going to appear in every single test, but this is just the initial one that you get. So let's try this. This tells you to remember the orientation. So down, 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 and then repeat this. So down, down, down for the 3, and then peripheral vision that tells us to catch the corresponding directions of the numbers, or the C that floats up on the screen. So 3, 2, 1, so up. And so now we have to tap on the corresponding one that matched the one in the center. And it gets more complex as more numbers start to fill the border out of these possible circles. And finally, box tap, which is more of a reaction-based game that tells you to enter things by sequence. So whenever a box first appears on screen, you tap on it to eliminate it, and it gets faster and faster, and you must do this through the sequence that they appear on screen. So if you mess up the sequence, then that's not going to be good. Otherwise, the floating boxes on screen aren't actually the boxes that you try to hit, so those are just meant to confuse you. And once this is finished, it's going to start to calculate your age for the day, and then once done, it's going to record this on this graph, and of course you can take this many times a day, but only the results of the first assessment will be saved, and then you can check your progress through this map. So then it tells you through your 5, your areas where it tries to map, as well as check your eye health, how you compete. So stronger perhaps in eye movement than in dynamic visual acuity, and so on and so forth. So it tells you a bit more information about this, which you can learn, and it's a bit more of the useful aspect of this game. Once you're done with this, it actually goes through, if you complete all the mini challenges that it sets, this relaxation stage, which is composed of directions followed by this kind of relaxing music, and there's on-screen prompts for you to roll your eyes left or roll your eyes right, and then blink, and then followed by your eyes up, down, left, right. Repeat that process 10 times, and then close your eyes, and that kind of relaxes your eyes. So that's the process there. So all in all, that's basically how this game works. So at the very end, I'm still left with quite a few questions. I don't think it's an actual going to be a huge improvement on your actual sight training, because again, you are really just still squinting at a small screen in front of you, and these are games that you get better at naturally as you develop more confidence and you start to play these games over and over again. Regardless though, at least it does have more of a healthier approach to gaming than usual, and it's going to be, I guess, more useful perhaps just because Nintendo DS tends to have an younger audience range than compared to something like the PSP Vita or the PS Vita by Sony. So that's something to quickly point out. You can check out more details about this back in our official article that we wrote a few years back, but this has been our video throwback review here at OS Reviews of the Nintendo DS Sight Training game.